I can't think of a particular day where a big announcement was made to say, now you're in business. It's been a combination of events, circumstances. What I do know, though, is that when my parents passed away, and as the eldest of six, myself included, I knew that a teacher's salary was just not going to cut it. I wanted to have a decent life. And I'm a teacher by profession. So I needed to do something more than what a job would give me, to take care of my family responsibilities and still, without compromising an aspiration for a good quality life. I learned about the concept of time at a very early age, that one of the biggest assets I had on my side would have been time, and therefore optimal utilization of time is probably the biggest choice that one can make in this lifetime. And so the fascinating thing about being a broadcaster in those days was that most of the broadcasters would spend about 3 hours on air. And I often wondered what they did the rest of the time. So I thought this would be cool. 3 hours, get paid, take care of the business, the basics, and then utilize the rest of the day or night to do other things, utilizing my skills to earn and to hopefully make an impact in life. I was born, Kamhlava, a village called Begersdorp in the Zanin area in Limpopo. Grew up surrounded by teachers, and the next best guy would be a shop owner, or there will be a rumor that there's a doctor in the neighborhood, and maybe a lawyer of some sorts, lots of policemen and nurses. And I like teaching. I really enjoyed teaching. My role models were teachers growing up. So I decided I wanted to be a teacher. And the story was nicely thought out. I'll be a teacher of history and or English, and then I will do so well that I'll one day become the head of that subject at the school, and then I'll become a principal, and then I'll become a regional inspector in education, and we'll take it up from there. I want to believe that there's still a teacher in me. I haven't decided to stop teaching. The classroom is different. The circumstances in our country are different. I'm fortunate enough that the business that I'm in the main, does a lot of information dissemination. Broadcast is both television and radio. Has a lot of teaching involved. Less teaching, actually, a lot of sharing. It's information dissemination, and the public gets to interface with that. So I still believe that in one or another, I remain connected to my original idea of a career, which is teaching. Post matric, I got a bursary, which I fought for, from the Department of Education in the then homeland of Gazankulu. Went to the University of Limpopo to study teaching. So I first did a 3A degree, a BA, majoring in psychology, English, philosophy, and history, and then did my higher education diploma at the University of, Turflop, now called the University of Limpopo. While there, I, myself and a few friends approached the university with an idea of starting a campus radio station. And on the 1st of April, 1995, we went on air as TEF Radio, 103.8, with a pair of line, the station that listens to the people. I remember the date because it was essentially a day before my birthday. I'm born on the 2nd of April. So we went on air, and the station was the first campus-based radio station to be licensed by the then IBA. I was there responsible for marketing and fundraising, and I was on air as well. I then entered, while I was there, a competition that was run by Metro, the SABC, called The Voice of the New Generation. I didn't win it. I was in the top 3 though. And went back to Teflop. And a few weeks later, our head of public affairs, a gentleman by the name of John Wilshire, introduced me to a scholarship that the Soros Foundation in the US was running, also sponsored by Dow Jones, a gentleman by the name of Jim Oraway. He was vice president of Dow Jones then. They were looking for 3 students from South Africa to go to Bard College in New York on a developmental studies assignment. So the challenge was to write a paper on the developmental outlook of South Africa. I was 21 then. Had just finished both my studies, and I was essentially now going to join the public affairs department of the university in my final year, but I was doing some postgrad media studies with the university. Actually volunteered to be a guinea pig as a first student of media studies at the University of Limpopo. And I'm very glad that the last time I checked, they had about 1,000 students who are part of this program today. So as a developmental media studies student, first one of the university, I submitted that paper. To my pleasant surprise, I was selected to go to Bard. I went to Bard, and while I was at Bard, I stayed in touch with the guys at the SABC. And whether you'll relate to this, but a well-known rapper by the name of Tupac Shakur got shot, and I immediately called Metro, and I shared the story with them, and they put me on air. And at the end of the crossing, I said, speak to you same time, tomorrow, same place. So that's how I secured myself a gig as a correspondent of Metro FM. But also while at Bard, I realized that my academic time, I had a lot of time on my hand. So I proposed to my lecturers then, Professor Chuno Achebe of the Things Fall Apart fame, that we reorganize my academic calendar because I wanted to do a bit of work. So I walked around the streets of Manhattan, knocked on the doors of a company called Inner City Broadcasting, and requested that they consider me for an internship. They took me in at a talk station called WLIB as a producer, and also upstairs was a music station called WBLS 107.5, also as an intern there. So I ended up producing their breakfast show. It was presented by a guy called Les Brown. He's become a great friend. He comes to South Africa often, one of the most highly renowned and respected motivational speakers. So I produced Les Brown's show. At the time, he was married to a singer by the name of Gladys Knight, and they co-presented the show. So I had the honor of producing a show presented by Les and Gladys Knight. And downstairs, I worked for Hal Jackson, also another highly renowned broadcaster. And then during fall, I'll go down to LA. Jim Oraway hooked me up with the guys at Castle Rock Entertainment. And I also did some internship there. So by the time I left the US and came back home, I had, broadcasting experience, producing highly accomplished broadcasters, production experience for television or film, and I'd also done a bit of work with Sony Entertainment in New York in their artist management division. So I guess I had a fairly, rounded exposure to the media and entertainment world. So I came back to the country because I had been a correspondent for Metro. They offered me a job as a sports commentator for the weekends. And this didn't smell right. So the guys at Kaya, I was still in touch with them. Inner City Broadcasting actually took an equity position in Kaya when it launched. So my former boss in New York, Mr. Sutton, was programs manager at Kaya. Spoke to him, and I went across at Kaya because Kaya was offering me something more respectable. They wanted me to be a producer of the morning show and an assistant in marketing. Fast forward, within 3 months, I was producing the morning show. I was producing Yuma Sikela and Smongolo Kumalo's music show. I had moved from being an assistant marketing manager into deputy marketing manager. I had also been made deputy programs manager. So for a a lucrative salary of 6,000 rands a month. I was deputy programs manager, deputy marketing manager, producer of morning show, producer of the Sunday music show, presenter of an early morning show, 3 to 6 in the morning. I had about 7 jobs for a cool 6,000 rands. And 6 months later, my eyes were swollen because I slept on average about 3-4 hours. You can imagine you are in studio at 3 in the morning. After that, you are producing the morning show. After that, you're running dual offices of marketing and programming, and you have to prepare for the following day. Weekends also, I had a Saturday evening show between 7 and 9. Sunday, I was in studio as well. So it was just too much. And I decided to quit my job, but maintain my on-air presence. I think for me, the biggest learning, starting from while I was in New York and coming back, was that the bosses that I worked for kind of seemed to like people who raised their hands, and said, "Let me help you." And people talk about favoritism in the office. I know that. I replicate in my business. There are certain stars who are just willing and ready to pick up and run with it. I was that young man. I was a sponge. I remain one. I'm a perpetual student of work, of life. And what that does is that it just puts you in a position of influence and power at a very young age, because people know they can rely on you. And so I continue to hire energy. I believe that, there are endless skills out there. What we don't have enough of are energetic, passionate, hungry, curious young people who are willing to take it to another level. I was that guy. And so I could walk the floors of inner city broadcasting, and I would have my principals or my bosses vouching for me, because they knew that if I said I'll do it. And for me, deadline was never the measure. It was, if I promise that I'll deliver this work by 7 o'clock in the morning, you probably will have it in your inbox the night before. And therefore, I developed a spirit of trust, and my bosses knew they could rely on me. I tried to continue doing that, and I definitely like those types of people who are willing to volunteer and surprise their bosses. 6 months later, I'm tired, but I'm also realizing that some of the people that I actually grew up admiring and respecting had one thing in common, which is the ability to, for lack of a better word, to study, and this might sound wrong, but manipulate the environment. What do I mean by that? It's often not the most talented people who succeed in life. It's people who study the environment and have a clear view of value, a definition of value, and complement that, who tend to stand out. And so I looked at the media space, particularly the public relations space. I used to receive, as a producer and a program person, quality work of guys pitching ideas that we should cover as a radio station, Kaya then. And these people were paid proper money in those days. And I was interacting with them. And yet when you engage with them on substance, there wasn't much depth. So I quit my job and said, let me go do it myself, because I had a point of view. So, and that's when I started my own consultancy, Given Mkhari Productions, which was a combination of, I was producing video in those days, what today you call television. For us it was video. And I was producing events, productions, and I was doing PR. And in no time had built a sizable PR business called the Communications Firm, which is still in business today, one of the few standing ones from those early days, doing issues management, reputation management, crisis communication, and quality staging of events. From there, over time, I started doing a few acquisitions, bought into what was a fairly small but famous ad agency then, the Jupiter Drawing Room, and built it within a few months into one of the most sizable ad agencies. I think at some stage we were in the top 3. And this was, by the way, I remember when we bought Jupiter, a minority interest, 25.1%, we got a beautiful love letter from one of the key clients congratulating us on, and I quote, transforming what was the last bastion of white dominance in advertising, unquote. 3 months later, the very same client fired us, right? I'm not going to mention them now. It's a bank. I went back to my partners to say, you guys sold us a lie. But we had signed, you see. So I went to raise more money and bought control of the ad agency. And 6 months thereafter, this was a black-owned, black-managed, black-led, well-known agency, but quite small. 6 months later, we had built it and turned it around into the top 3. That's when we won a major bank, a major retailer, an airline, clients in the petroleum space. It was called a perfect storm in 2006. A year later, we got an approach from WPP. We sold half of the business. We had decent cash on our side, and we used some of those proceeds to do a few deals. I bought into a listed business process outsourcing firm, initially about 7 million shares at 160 a share, had locked in an option, went back about 3 months later, spent about just below 200 million to buy more. Suddenly we're a shareholder of reference in it, but with BE lock-ins, and this thing came tumbling down. By the time we liquidated, all the major institutional investors had exited, and we're stuck in there. We liquidated it at, I think at the time, at about 12 cents a share. So we lost a whole lot of money. And essentially, for a good 5 years, our balance sheet was really, really compromised. The biggest learnings post the Dialogue fiasco, Dialogue Group Holdings, is that in that opportunity, we had access to debt. We had equity following, the likes of Jupiter, the cash that we made out of it. And so our investment proposition at the time was essentially cash in hand and access to the debt market. There was hardly a consideration to our value proposition in business. So we understood at the time our value proposition to purely being access to debt and access to opportunity. These were the heavy days of BE transactions. And my biggest learning is that opportunity on its own is actually not value, right? Definition of identifying a proposition that you know what to do with it based on either your skill set, whatever definition of capital you have. Capital could be time, could be skills, could be cash, could be access to cash, but most importantly, understanding your market and your ability to intervene through hopefully a sustainable, meaningful solution. Opportunity on its own is not enough. Knowing what to do, creating an opportunity, right? Sustaining it, making it meaningful to all the key stakeholders. This could be the shareholders, and in no order of priority, the shareholders, the funders, the staff, the markets, right? A more integrated, fully informed business proposition tends to last than a pure opportunistic opportunity defined by a trend at the time. And some people can get away with it, and I don't fault them. But it hasn't worked that much for us. In every business where we've been successful, it's been where we can identify our value, not just value add, the ability to create value, to add it, to sustain it, to see it through for all stakeholders concerned. That has been my big. So today we back ourselves into a business than just watch an opportunity that flies in and you grab it. It doesn't seem to work in most cases. MSG today is primarily a media and communications group. Over the past 10 years, we are one of the few, if not only, groups that have organically built a radio network. Radio assets are highly lucrative, very profitable assets, but they're a lot of work. Major competitors, most of them are products of M&A. They've acquired licenses, and nowadays people hardly sell radio licenses. We've had the patience and the commitment to go organic, which means applying for a license from the scratch. Our regulator licenses on a 10 to 15-year horizon, which means that until there's a license available in commercial radio, you can't just wake up and create a station. So it requires a lot of patience, a lot of commitment. We have now built a network of 4 radio licenses, spanning 7 provinces in the country. That makes it the second largest radio network in South Africa after the SABC, but certainly the largest privately owned radio network. And that is on the back of a space that we have lived on. I mean, I've lived radio all my life. So it's a space I understand very well, but also surrounded by a very solid team of practitioners who are very talented, very committed, but also a multiplicity of skills, financial skills, broadcast skills, sales skills, programming skills, all of that. So we are a very focused business. That when you look at the complementary assets within the group, in terms of audiovisual skills, you got one of our subsidiaries, Quizzical Pictures, that does solid content as well, both for broadcasters and private players. So, we do things like Rhythm City for ETV, MasterChefs for Mnet, a whole lot of other stuff for the SABC. It's very complementary to what we do. We've got a sales business, commercial wing of the business, MSG Group Sales, that are able to commercialize and leverage on all these platforms that we have on the media side. The communications firm is still in business, also very complementary. So the messaging, back to the teacher that I spoke about, information sharing and the ability to leverage all that, the eyeballs and the audiences that we have is what we do every day. So it's a more focused business. It doesn't feel like work because we're doing us. And I think the insights that we have into South Africa, what makes this economy tick, is one of the things that I believe distinguishes us from our competitors. We're very, very connected to the fiber and the essence of this community, of this society. Look, the reason I call myself a coward with conviction is that I don't generally jump into something until I am convinced that I will make it better or make it different, and that there will be impact post the MSG intervention, right? So I have a lot of conviction. Once I fixate on a proposition, I love to see it through. But the learnings from the few businesses that have not worked have taught me and the team that I work with that homework, due diligence, both the hard aspects of due diligence and the soft stuff. And the soft stuff will refer to the people stuff, what makes consumers move and not move, some of which is beyond demographics. It's the psychographic stuff, it's the trend stuff. Homework in that aspect is very, very critical. So I call myself a coward because I love to prepare. Conviction is that once convinced, we go the whole way. And because the bulk of our businesses operate in the people space, right? It's important that you surround yourself with people who are able to challenge you, question you, but most importantly, complement the dream. I believe that particularly in the entrepreneurial environment, I believe that what makes businesses work is a concept that I believe in, which is a concept of a partnership of dreams. When you approach a person and say, come work for us, or they apply for a job and say, I want to work with you, that is essentially a formation of a partnership. And that's a partnership of dreams. So it's important to know what the people who work with you, what their dreams are, and to establish if their dreams complement your dreams. Because if there's no complementary relationship between what they aspire for as individuals and what the group aspires for, there will be conflict. Understanding as well that this partnership of dreams may not be made to last in perpetuity. So the moment our dreams and yours do not complement one another, we may encourage you to move on. In the same way that if you don't feel that we complement your dreams as a staff member, you may opt to move on. While it makes sense, it's great. Now, what is it about, how do you tell that you complement each other with this applicant? For me, it's the energy, right? Skills are abound out there in many respects, but there's something distinctive about a person's energy, which would be about the things that they emphasize in the conversation, the reasons they want to be part of the MSG group. Why do they want to work for Power FM or Capricorn FM or Beat or Rhythm or Quizzical, etc.? And you build a culture within your executive team to go beyond the hard stuff, understand what makes this young person tick. And if the language that they speak, the emphasis in their priorities speaks to what we believe in. They don't have to agree, by the way. But the question is, they don't have to agree with your own definition. If you believe as the management that beyond the scale, they'll take us to another level, we tend to give those people a chance. We're an entrepreneurial business, so we like people who want to innovate, who want to go beyond the norm, who are not obsessed with working hours, who own the business in attitude, in passion, in energy. So I like entrepreneurs who see our business as a platform to express their entrepreneurial flair. Entrepreneurship for me, by the way, does not stop with ownership or equity, right? It's about, if you believe this business is a platform for you to excel and you'll treat it as yours, you my guy or you my girl. My view of the South African business landscape and the opportunity thereof is that nothing was built in this country with black people in mind as drivers of the economy, as sponsors of the economy, as productive assets of this economy. So there's a massive opportunity for the next few years where we view black people as the next biggest gold available in this economy, beyond the goals underground, right? And I think that the businesses that will succeed in this country are those that are able to tap into insights of this massive economy that has not been explored. So what we see in recent times, if you look at the most successful businesses that we already have, whether it's in education or telco or retail, the new billionaires of South African economy are those that recognize black people not just as consumers, but as partners to drive their businesses, right? What does it mean for those of us in the media space? It means that we go beyond seeing them as just consumers, blind consumers. We treat them as thinkers with a point of view, and we treat them with respect. And that was Power 98.7 is about. It's about recognizing that there are all these massive decision makers and drivers of this economy that have not been engaged on their terms. And we speak to them with respect. We say to them, you are the first generation in the main that have defied all the stereotypes that have come with apartheid. Most of you are leaders in the private sector. You are leaders in business. You are leaders in civil society. Here is a media platform that treats you with respect, that challenges you to lead responsibly, that demands of accountability from you. When I look back at first the concept of leadership and even mentorship, there's one perpetual name that comes to mind, and that's my mother. Because my mother challenged me from a very early age to back myself, to believe in myself. She treated me like a leader even before, one had a view about leadership. never treated me like a victim or somebody who didn't have much. She sponsored my confidence at a very young age. And so even when it comes to ideas around mentorship, I have a lot of young people who call me their mentor. But I hardly do this appointment every day, every particular day of the month, we have a mentorship session. For me, it's about access. Access to people that you aspire to be like in one or another. And I've been blessed to have a lot of those, academically. I mean, I spoke about John Wisher at the University of Limpopo, Professor Njabulo Ndebele, our premier, David Makura, when I was a student. In South Africa today in business, a very good friend of mine, Nkululeko Sowazi of the TISA group, guys like Adrian Gore, who you can pick up the phone and the guys take you seriously. Sizen Ngasana, I can mention brothers and sisters who just gave me access. And in most cases, these people are about knowing, one, that when you call them, there's really a conversation to be had. I call them at critical times when I need sound advice or options, right? And I find that they find these sessions fulfilling because they have a lot that they carry, but young people don't know how to engage or probe in a way that they can share. There's a fundamental human and innate thing about us as human beings, which is wanting the quest to share that which we have. It's there. The question is, are the people that you believe will use the stuff responsibly, make an impact, and hopefully help you expand your legacy? The quest to build a legacy, it's innate, it's fundamental, it's human. But who are those people who are going to carry your legacy and not just waste your name or your reputation or your time? So I have a lot of guys, friends and family that I know, I'll pick up the phone or ask for time, and it's going to be meaningful time, certainly for me and hopefully for them. And so leaders, I believe that every moment, every minute is essentially a leadership or legacy creation moment. The point is to be conscious about it. The fact that I have a telephone number does not necessarily translate in us being buddies. So you've got to pick up the phone, make it meaningful, make it lasting, and make it beneficial to both parties. A lot of value is not just about calling to ask for money or calling to ask for time without having thought, is this person the most optimum person I should speak to about this? Will they find it meaningful? Or could I actually be risking a relationship of trust and belief that has been built over time because I'm asking nonsensical, not well-researched or not well thought out questions, etc. I know that I have very little patience for people who call me for time or for a meeting when we could actually kill this conversation in a minute on the phone. And so I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that when I make that call, I thought about it, because I don't want to subject someone else to things that I don't want to be subjected to. And I think this is part of the language that, as business leaders, we have a lot to share with young people, students, to go understand that the networks that you've built must be treasured, must be respected, and only be utilized when there's going to be impact made. Don't waste relationships. Use them productively.